Welcome to Movie Recap. And today we have another of my all-time favorites. The Passion of the Christ opens at night in the Garden of Gethsemane, just outside Jerusalem. The air is tense and quiet as Jesus prays alone, kneeling on the cold ground under the moonlight. His robe is soaked in sweat and tears. He pleads to his Father, asking if it's possible to take this suffering away from him, but ends his prayer by accepting God's will. As he prays, he's visibly tormented, trembling as he senses what's about to come. Nearby, his disciples Peter, James, and John try to stay awake, but keep drifting off to sleep, unaware of the weight of what's about to happen. Suddenly, Jesus begins to experience overwhelming anguish. Blood mixes with his sweat as it drips down his face. Out of the shadows, Satan appears, watching and whispering words of doubt and temptation, trying to make him question his mission. Jesus looks up with calm defiance and continues praying, while the serpent slithers out from beneath Satan's cloak. As it approaches Jesus, he stands and crushes it under his heel, symbolizing his triumph over evil. Meanwhile, in the city, Judas meets with the temple guards and priests, including Caiaphas, the high priest, who pays him 30 pieces of silver for the whereabouts of Jesus. Later, soldiers carrying torches and weapons march through the night, led by Judas. In the garden, Jesus wakes his sleeping disciples and tells them that his betrayer is near. The men rise, confused and frightened, as they hear the sound of footsteps and see the flicker of torches drawing closer. Judas steps forward with the soldiers behind him. He approaches Jesus hesitantly, then kisses him on the cheek, the sign he agreed on with the guards. Jesus looks at him with sadness and asks softly if he betrays the Son of Man with a kiss. Immediately, the guard sees Jesus. Peter reacts, pulling a sword and cutting off the ear of one of the high priest's servants, Malchus. Jesus stops him, telling Peter that those who live by the sword will die by it, then gently heals the wounded man's ear. Elsewhere, some of the disciples scatter into the darkness as the soldiers tie Jesus' hands and drag him away. Judas stands frozen in regret, watching the soldiers lead Jesus toward the city walls. Later, John runs in Mary's house, and John gently tells her that they've taken her son. Mary's body weakens as she absorbs the words, and Magdalene holds her close while John urges them to come with him. Meanwhile, Jesus is dragged across the cobblestone courtyard by the temple guards, bruised, bloodied, and bound in chains. He's forced before the Jewish high priests and elders, surrounded by a hostile crowd hungry for blame. The high priest Caiaphas steps forward, demanding that Jesus answer whether he is truly the Son of God and the Messiah. Jesus looks at them calmly, his face swollen but his eyes unwavering, and confirms it. That only enrages them more. Caiaphas tears his robe and shouts that Jesus has spoken blasphemy. The crowd begins to spit at him, slap his face, and mock him. One of the guards strikes him across the mouth, but Jesus remains silent. He endures the humiliation without resisting. Among the crowds, Peter hides in the shadows, trying not to be noticed. A man recognized and grabs his arm, saying he saw him with Jesus. Panicked, Peter denies it, insisting he doesn't know the man. Another person confronts him, but again, he denies it. The third time, someone points directly at him, shouting that he's one of Jesus' followers. Peter, terrified of being arrested or beaten, swears he doesn't know Jesus. Peter freezes, realizing what he's done. Jesus, inside the courtyard, turns his head and looks straight at him. Their eyes meet for a moment. Jesus' gaze full of sorrow and understanding. Peter's full of shame. Peter brings Jesus to the court, and he breaks down and runs into the night, weeping bitterly, remembering that Jesus had foretold this would happen before the rooster crowed. Elsewhere, Judas wanders alone, racked with guilt. The silver coins feel like poison in his hands. He stumbles through the streets, seeing twisted visions of demonic figures around him. Children chase and mock him, their faces warping into those of demons as he runs in terror. Tormented and desperate to escape the evil closing in, he throws the silver onto the temple floor and flees into the wilderness. In a moment of despair, Judas hangs himself from a tree, ending his life. Meanwhile, Jesus is in an underground cell, his face pale and streaked with dried blood. The next morning, the priests lead Jesus to the Roman governor's palace, demanding execution. Since Jewish law forbids them from killing him themselves, they bring him to Pontius Pilate. Inside, Pilate listens to their accusations, but studies Jesus carefully. He sees no threat, no guilt, only quiet strength. His wife Claudia appears privately and pleads with him not to harm this man, saying she's been haunted by troubling dreams about him, that he is holy. Pilate faces the angry crowd outside and realizes he's trapped. To calm them, he brings out Barabbas, a notorious murderer. Pilate gives the people a choice, release Jesus or Barabbas. The crowd, stirred up by the priests, shouts for Barabbas. Even as Pilate questions their judgment, they grow louder, demanding Jesus' crucifixion. Pilate reluctantly releases Barabbas, who glances briefly at Jesus before turning away, almost unsettled by his silent presence. Pilate declares that he'll have Jesus scourged and then set free. But that punishment alone is brutal. Jesus is taken by Roman soldiers into a courtyard, where they strip him to the waist and tie his hands above a post in the ground. Before the beating starts, Jesus closes his eyes and whispers a prayer, readying himself. Then the scourging begins. The soldiers strike him with whips embedded with metal and bone, tearing into his skin. The sound echoes through the chamber as he flinches and gasps in pain, but never cries out. The priests and onlookers watch coldly, some smiling with satisfaction. From the crowd, Satan appears again, calm, expressionless, feeding off the cruelty unfolding. Mary and Magdalene arrive just in time to see Jesus being whipped. Mary falls to her knees, trembling, unable to bear the sight. Tears stream down her face as each blow lands. Finally, she turns away, her heart breaking at her son's suffering. Claudia, Pilate's wife, approaches quietly with clean towels and hands them to Mary, her eyes full of sorrow. She whispers that she's sorry, that she wishes she could stop it. After what feels endless, one of the Roman officers steps in, shouting for the soldiers to stop, reminding them they were ordered to chastise, not kill him. The soldiers untie Jesus, his back torn and bleeding, and drag his half-conscious body away. Later, the courtyard is silent, stained with blood. Mary and Magdalene return to the site, kneel down, and begin wiping the ground clean where he was tortured. Mary's hands shake as she wipes away the blood of her son, her face filled with both grief and unshakable love. Later, Jesus, already covered in bruises and blood, is dragged once more before Pilate. The soldiers had earlier on mocked him, forced a crown made of thorns onto his head, and pressed it down until it pierced his scalp. Pilate steps forward, his face torn with pity and fear. He brings Jesus out before the crowd, hoping they'll see that he's suffered enough. Pilate gestures toward him, his voice trembling as he tells the people they've punished him severely. But the crowd roars back, demanding his crucifixion. Pilate looks over at the priests, realizing there's no reasoning with them. His heart breaks as he looks at Jesus one last time. Then defeated, Pilate orders that their wish be granted. He washes his hands before the people, trying to rid himself of the guilt he knows he'll never escape. Soon after, Jesus is forced to carry the heavy wooden cross through the streets, flanked by two other condemned men. His body trembles under the weight, and every step is agony. The soldiers strike him when he slows, shouting for him to move. The streets fill with onlookers, some weeping and some mocking. Among the crowd, Mary follows quietly with John and Magdalene, her eyes locked on her son. Every stumble makes her heart sink further. When Jesus collapses face first onto the ground, the guards kick and beat him to the ground. Pilate, on the other side of the crowd, holds the cross in his hand to make him rise. He strains to lift the cross again, his body shaking with exhaustion. He walks a few more steps before falling again. This time, Mary can't stay back. She rushes through the crowd and kneels beside him, her hands trembling as she touches his bloodied face. Jesus finds strength in her presence, grips the cross again, and continues walking. As the soldiers grow impatient, Jesus collapses a third time. They shout at the crowd and pull out a man, Simon of Cyrene, forcing him to carry the cross. Simon resists at first, but one look at Jesus softens his heart. He lifts the cross and walks beside him. The procession continues through the night. A woman steps out from the crowd, holding out a cloth and water, desperate to give Jesus relief. The soldiers shove her away, but not before she wipes his face, her tears mixing with his blood. Jesus and Simon walk on together. Simon's breathing is heavy, but he keeps encouraging Jesus, telling him they're almost there. When they finally reach the top of Golgotha, the guards pull Simon away, as his work is done. Mary, Magdalene, and John rush up the hill moments later. Mary freezes when she sees her son. His body is unrecognizable, covered in wounds, his face swollen and bloody. The soldiers strip him of his garments and throw him down on the cross. They stretch his arms and drive nails through his hands and feet. John stands close, remembering Jesus' words from days earlier, how he said he would lay down his life for the world out of love. The weight of that memory crushes him as he watches it come true. The soldiers raise the cross up. It's upright and it slams into place. Jesus hangs between two criminals, but the other criminal looks at Jesus and quietly asks to be remembered when he enters his kingdom. Jesus turns his head and promises that he will join him in paradise that very day. The priests approach, shouting that if he's truly the Messiah, he should come down from the cross. But Jesus, through his pain, looks upward in praise, asking God to forgive them, for they don't understand what they're doing. Hours pass, the sky darkens as a massive cloud rolls over the sun. The earth grows silent and cold. People look around, unsettled, unsure what's happening. Mary walks closer, kneels at the foot of the cross, and kisses his feet, her tears falling onto the blood-stained wood. She pleads to die with him, but Jesus looks down, addressing her softly as woman, and tells John to care for her as his own mother. With his final breath, Jesus says that his mission is complete. His head falls forward and the world changes. The earth begins to shake violently. Rocks split apart, and the temple in Jerusalem tears in two. The priests look on in horror, realizing